For kind of the last bit of this lesson, we're just gonna look at Tuner and like play around with it, and then go into the code and just show like where. Yeah, question before we start.
Should we go and run the thing?
No, you don't have to. You can. This is just like if you want to follow along, you're welcome to. If you want to just watch, that's fine too. I'm just gonna kind of keep talking at you guys for a bit. I guess before we go into, does anyone have any questions from what we've been going over so far? Yeah.
So I kind of know the difference between the page you load up, right? What's the difference between doing an HTML with a link tag and just what you got so far? Because it just looks like regular link tags.
So, you mean like in Tuner?
Yeah, like you just like that HTML.
Yeah. So we are basically, this is rendering an HTML file, right? The difference is that like every time I click on songs or every time I click on artists, right? Like each of these have different artist names, and each of these have like different song titles and stuff, right? So you would need like a new HTML file for all of those. You literally like if you're doing this all front end, there would have to be literally a yeahs.html, a no such thing.
What's the difference between doing that? Like I've done with Angular and like JS when I've done things like that. AngularPress. What's the difference between that and this?
So Angular is doing it all on the front end. So there is a little bit of a difference there. So like Angular is making it, it's what we call like single page web applications. So it's like, basically the idea is that parts of the page stay the same and you only refresh like little bits and pieces of that page. You guys will get into Angular a little bit later on, but I mean, they're two very separate things. So this is like building an app. The idea is like, if you go to /artist/1, right? The new page loads. Whereas Angular, the idea is like the page doesn't load, but like small bits of the page load. Yeah. It depends on how you want your application to work, right? Like I wouldn't say there's a better or wrong way to do it. It's just kind of how you want your app to work. So yeah, that's a fair question though. All right. So let's just go ahead. I'm just going to kind of go through and like, we're going to click on artists here, right? And then we're going to go into the code and just run through exactly what's happening. Does that sound cool? All right, sweet. So what happens when I click on artists? When I click here, you'll see it brings up the yeahs page, right? So it's got their songs, it's got like a picture, the name, all that stuff, right? You'll also notice that up here didn't change, right? Tuner and then songs and artists. That did not change, right? So you'll also notice one more time that our URL here has brought us to artist/1, right? If we go to Kendrick Lamar, it brings us to artist/5, right? Cool. So that's actually doing exactly what we thought about before, where it's going to /ID. So let's take a look.
I don't want to see how to do edit.
What's up?
Edit.
I'll get into edit soon, but sure, I'll just do it anyway. So when we go to edit, we go to /5/edit. So that's like a new page to edit it. Yeah. And there are different ways to do this, but for now, we're literally just keeping it like as basic as possible. So you go to like an edit page instead of maybe like editing it on the same page or something like that. So let's look at the code here. So first things first, right? We've requested a route, artist/5, right? So does anyone remember like where we would go for that? Like where did I define my routes?
I think it's either app or DB. It's one of those.
Close. It's actually neither of those though.
Yeah.
What's that? Almost, yeah, config, yeah. Yep. So you go into config, and you see there's a whole bunch of nonsense in here, right? A little bit, you guys might touch some of this stuff a little bit later on. Don't worry about most of it. The one to worry about right now is this routes.rb file, right? And you'll see here, we're literally defining exactly what we did before, right? So we're saying get artist/new. So it's like, go to that page, right? Post artist, so create something new. And then we're actually defining the action that we want it to take, right? So we're saying, go to the index page, go to the new page, create a new artist for us, right? Going forward, so right now, these are like very, very, very hard-coded defined routes, right? You guys will see kind of as we move on throughout Rails, there are a lot of ways to shorten this up a lot. You'll see that there's going to be a time, I'm not going to get too deep into it, by that I mean I'm barely going to talk about it, where you'll come across something called resources, right? So literally to define your routes, it will take 2 lines instead of 16 lines or something, right? But for now, this is just being like very explicit, right? So we went to Kendrick Lamar, right? So that was artist/ID, so /5, right? And it's telling you to bring up the artist show page, right? Cool. So let's now look at the controller. Let's see what that's asking us for.
So is that something you set up when you first set up your page, or is that something you set up as you like go through and figure out what you need by?
It's kind of a little bit of both, right? So I would say typically like these are sort of the standard routes you would have, right? So if you have like two models, so you have artists and songs, right? You'd probably set this up right away because this is pretty standard, right? You're gonna want like an index page, you're gonna want a show page, you're gonna want to be able to update and delete them, right? And like create new ones. If you didn't want the ability to delete artists, you could just get rid of this, right? Like you're allowed to do that. It's not going to give you an error. It just means you can't delete your artist at any point. So yeah, I would say these are pretty standard. There are other routes that you can make, and yeah, you don't have to use all of them. I would just say for now, this is just sort of like the most conventional, basic ones that we're going through. Yeah, good question. Do you have a question? Yeah.
I really hope this question doesn't screw everything up, but so you remember how we did the runaround where we had a show and an index? Is that that's pretty standard kind of thing?
Show and index?
Show and index?
Yep.
What happens if as you're creating your app, you get more in depth and your show artist single page, becomes an index or has a bunch of stuff on it?
Yeah. So you could do that as well. It would probably be something like you'd have artists and you'd have like your index page, which is still all the artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a show page, which is specific artists, but you can list you saw we list all the songs on that artist page.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to go into I don't know, artists' medical records or something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there'd be like a medical records show page or something. That'd be super illegal, but you could do it.
In that file or back where the songs are, or would you just create a new would the
So you
medical records one be in the artist?
Yeah, so you'd create you'd have medical records.html.erb. Hope I don't get sued for this or something. Just kidding. Yeah, so you'd have that, and then you would put in your HTML file here, and you'd link to this page as well, and you'd have to create a new route that sends you to this page. Yep, good question. Yeah.
So those little arrow thingies, that's just telling you to go to that.
These?
Yeah.
Yes, this is basically saying this is our route, this is our route, and then this is the action we want to take. So the idea is we're saying get artists, right, and then do this action. And what's this action? We then go to the controller again, and we see the action is getting all artists here, right? And we're defining this action here, right? And then when we do that, then we know to then render the index.html page, which is spitting out all those artists onto a view. Yeah.
Are you also editing your layout div classes, everything inside the ERB file?
Yeah. So yes, that's exactly what we're doing. So we're laying out. This is our layout for our artist page here, right? So if you go here, right, like this H2. This H2 right here corresponds to this H2 up here. Yeah.
I would build my whole layout div classes and everything inside of that ERB file.
Sorry, say that again?
If I wanted to build my whole layout div classes into it, I do it in ERB file.
Sort of, yes. So what we have here is there's also this layouts folder. I don't know if you guys ever looked at this at all when you were kind of going through it. We have this layouts folder, and this is sort of what I wanted to note. If you look when we go back again, right, like this up here stays the same, right? That doesn't change, and you'll see when we refresh the page, it doesn't move at all, right? That actually comes from this application.html file. So this is essentially what you want. This is what you want on all of your pages at once, right? This is saying keep all of this the same. This is where you're calling all your CSS files, all your JavaScript files. This is where it's kind of the main HTML file, right? And you'll see here, we've got our H1, that's the title, the tuner, right? And we've got those two links, the songs and artists. So that stays here the whole time. And then you'll see here there's this weird yield thing, right? And what that's saying is when we go to index.html, right? It's saying bring all of this up and then yield to that other index.html file that we're trying to call. You guys get a lot more in depth on this in the views controllers class, but yeah.
And those percentages inside the...
Yeah, so those are what we call ERB tags, right? So let's kind of talk about it from this page, and I'll blow that up a little bit. So What this allows you to do, so these ERB tags essentially allow you to write Ruby code within an HTML file, right? So you'll see we've got at artist.eachDoArtist, right? This is in HTML, right? And that's usually not something you're able to do, right? You can't just write JavaScript in HTML unless you like included script tags or something, right? So this is pretty similar. This is almost like writing a script tag in HTML, but instead you're using these little like we call them clown hats sometimes, but that's not actually the technical term. So let's just call them ERB tags. We use these ERB tags to then say we're writing Ruby code, and it allows us to actually write Ruby code within our HTML. Does that make sense? Yeah. So here's a question: where do you think this at artists come from? Yeah, so it comes from our controller here, right? So we're defining on the index at artist equals the class of artist.all, right? And so we're able to take this here, we're able to take this definition, put it onto our index page, and then call that at artists, and then do some Ruby code on it from here. Pretty cool, right? Kind of, sort of, yeah. And again, you guys are gonna get way more into this going forward. So don't worry if it's not like immediately clicking. So let's do one more example. All right, let's let's close a couple of these. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and I don't want to delete Kendrick. Let's go ahead and delete this person. Yeah, sure. Has anyone heard of that person before? Yeah. Really? I haven't. Sorry.
I actually saw her in concert like
Oh, nice.
9 years ago.
Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and delete her anyway because I've never heard of her. So this is my playlist, so we're deleting what I want to delete. Anyway, all right. So let's go ahead. We're going to go into this edit, and you'll see there's this delete button here, right? So right now we're on artist/4/edit, and let's go ahead and delete, right? There we go. Delete, and it brought us back to the index page, right? Because there is no more show page. So if I went to,
When you refresh, we still deleted
yep, still gone. So we've actually gone into the database that I have, deleted her from it, and now she is gone. There's no, this is the beautiful thing, right? Like if you had done this in like your projects, right, and you refresh the page, she'd be back here. We've now deleted her completely. She's gone. I could add her back in if I want. I could do artist new and add her back in, or I could go ahead and like reseed my database in this case, but let's not do that. But right now she is gone. I can refresh this page a million times and she will still be gone. I forget, she was number 4, right? Yeah, so what if I go to artist/4 here? I get this crazy error, right? And this is one of those Rails errors that you guys are gonna see a lot of, right? This is actually pretty sweet though, right? Like this is literally saying, could not find artist with ID of 4. It's literally telling you exactly what the issue is, right? That's awesome. It's something that you're gonna see a lot of. And it's actually even telling you exactly where in your code that error is coming from, right? So it's saying, go to artistcontroller.rb, line 21, in show, and this is where your issue is. It's saying it can't find an ID of 4, right? That's a Ruby error, and it's awesome. It's super useful, right? And you guys are going to be coding along with this a lot more coming up, but it's just to show, like, a little different than JavaScript errors, right? A little different than pulling up your console and seeing, like, a little syntax error. Question, Ryan?
Is that specific to that development environment that you were talking about? Like, we wouldn't want a user to see this here.
You would not want a user to see it. That's right. But if you don't fix it, there are ways, like if someone deletes this and then goes to artist 4 right now, like if you don't have the right checks in place, the user will see something like this in your deployed app. There are ways around that where you like create, like a 404 page or something like that. But for now, this is kind of the issue. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, kind of what Ryan was saying. So this is like our development side, but like in reality, when you delete the artist, what's really going on? Because I mean, you hear it showing through our side, but like, when they did.
Yeah, it's the same thing happening. So this, like right now, I'm acting as the user right now, right? Like I can go in, I'm adding, whatever, I'm adding Madonna, right? I'm not going to add a photo or whatever. She's British, American?
She's confused. She's from Detroit.
All right. Weird. Okay, cool. So I'm going to add Madonna right now. I'm the user. This is not me using anything on the back end, right? Like just because it's in development, I'm testing this as a user right now. So if I hit create, I'm adding it to my development database, sure. But that is the exact same action that a user would take in production right there. And now if like you pulled up the database at some point, you would see Madonna is in there for good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Mohammed?
Does the app make a separate database for each user? So
No. Well, if you're using
if they delete something, but
well, so right now, like since we are in development, we're using like this local host, right? This is local to your computer or to my computer, right? So this local server is only on my computer. It's local to me. So if like you run Tuna right now, you won't see Madonna, right? But if this were in a production environment, like we were deploying this on something like Heroku or something, right? And someone was using it, then yeah, then if I added Madonna, you would also see Madonna if you went to that same website. So then it is it's a shared server and a shared database. So it's like Facebook, right? Like someone updates their profile, they're not the only ones that can see it, right? You also see someone else's updated profile, right? Does that make sense?
what I'm asking is, if I add Madonna,
Mhm.
can someone else come in and delete it?
I mean, on this specific app, yes. But there are also checks, which you guys will see at some point, to like create users. So like users can only delete things that they've created, right? There are ways to specify that. But again, this is like a very, very, very bare bones application, right? All this is trying to do is show you like the routes and how it works. But there are ways to add in like user authentication and stuff like that. Yep. Good question.
A real like,
No, this is just what the instructors built up. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah? Cool. Let's see, we have 10 minutes left. Do you want to run through some of these questions? Let's do it. So, let's not answer them. So, I guess I sort of asked this one already, but where do we configure our routes in our application? Like what folder and what file? Yep, config, and then what's the file called? Routes. Yep, very easy. Cool. And then you guys remember the syntax that I just showed to actually write one.
Yeah.
bad arrows.
Fat arrows. Yeah, that is those are involved. Yeah. So like, what would be the first thing that I put in my route? Verb. Is that what I heard? Yeah. Yeah, the verb. Yep.
Yeah.
And then what's next after the verb? Yeah, the path. Exactly. Yep. And then the fat arrows. Yep. And then after that, then it's basically telling it what controller to go to and what method to go to actually use in the controller to then produce like your index file or your show file, right? Cool. I'm gonna skip a couple of these questions. Let's see. What is the layouts file used for? The layouts directory used for?
To hold your layouts.
Sort of. So what does that mean?
Different layouts for, like, for example, if they choose to display one artist versus all artists, like how the layout changed versus if one action is taken versus the other.
Not quite. So that would actually be like in your views and then like songs folder or like artist folder, right? So then there's also the folder in your views that's just called layouts, right? So what would that be? Yeah, Adrian.
Isn't that where, like things that don't change on your page ever?
Yeah.
And you can just insert different bits of information rather than having to create a whole new page every time somebody runs a query?
Yeah, exactly. You think of it as like kind of like the skeleton of your app, and then like everything else is just filling in on top. Everything else is just filling in on top of it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. So how does the model get used? Oh yeah, question?
So is that the E or B? Is that a different file?
Yeah, sorry, I should probably go back to that. I forgot to even look back on this. I'm sorry, guys. So the ERB file is like what your views are. So you've got this HTML.erb. Let's not look at that one. There we go. So HTML.erb, right? So you'll see here it's like index.html.erb. So basically that .erb is telling it it's embedded. So it's HTML embedded Ruby. So that's literally saying allow us to use like these little clown hats here, right? This is saying allow us to use embedded Ruby. There's something like HTML.ejs, which allows you to do like some weird like embedded JavaScript stuff that I've never done before. But there are all sorts of things. Like it's basically telling Atom, or it's basically telling like your application what kind of code you're writing in your HTML file. Yeah. So ERB, when you hear ERB, that means like these percents, right? And that's essentially saying embedded Ruby.
It's like a hybrid
Yeah, exactly. It's literally embedding Ruby within your HTML. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. Cool. Yeah, so models. When does the model get used, or like what's the purpose of the model?
To get stuff from the database, like actually change it to update it.
Kind of. That's more like a controller, right? So that's like saying get like all the artists or something like that, right? That's where we're doing that in the controller. But in the model,
It's tables, right? It's like classes.
yeah, it's setting up your classes. So it's basically setting up the relationship between your tables, right?
Okay.
So let's pull it up real quick. I don't think I even pulled that up for you guys. So let's pull up the models. So let's pull up our artist model. So it's literally just this, right? This is our artist model and this is our song model, right? So this is just defining the relationship between artists and songs. So our songs belongs to an artist, right? And our artist has many songs. And then you'll see here, this is that dependent destroy thing that we talked about a little bit ago. So this is saying like if you delete an artist, also delete all of its dependencies. Yeah.
So earlier when we talked about like songs can have multiple artists, like in that file, like in the song one,
Mhm.
could we do like a has many
Yeah,
artists?
yeah. So right now, songs can only have one artist because it belongs to an artist, right? However, you could say like songs has many artists as well, right?
So you could add that as another line underneath that.
Yeah, I don't think you could set it. Yeah, you'd only have one of those. You could have like songs belongs to artists, and then like you could do like has many whatever producers or something, right? And then you would have like a whole nother model that's producers, right? You could do that, but right now we don't care about producers. But yeah, that you could do that technically. Yep, and you guys probably will do that at some point. So, any other questions? Yeah.
So if you delete the whole like artist name and
Mhm.
songs, then it always show you that Ruby style, Rails style page, or can you just transfer it to like 404 page?
You can transfer it to a 404 page or something. Yeah, there are ways to like sort of manipulate the errors so that a user doesn't see like that Ruby error. Like whenever
I
you
haven't seen any files.
yeah, exactly. Like when you're surfing the web or something, like if you've come across like a site that's built in Ruby, it's pretty rare that you're going to see something like that pop up if like you go to some random page. There are ways around that. Yeah.
That's error handling.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
So people keep saying that all these files are like, that it's really particular and it's got to follow this,
Mhm.
configuration.
Yep.
Say we're building something and we don't, have like any mailers or helpers or something.
Mhm.
Should we just keep it that way and just keep it empty?
Yeah.
Or would we just not?
Yeah. So right now, like those folders are empty in here, right? So like mailer, I mean, it's got this .keep, but don't worry about that. But
But
like,
if you deleted that mailers, would the whole thing explode?
no, I don't think so. I don't think you like. There's no reason to delete it. I would
Right.
say, but I don't think it would explode.
Okay.
Yeah, Mohammed.
I forgot. It's fine.
That's cool. No worries. All right, sweet. So yeah, last thing. Oh, all right, sweet. Let's do this
What
thing.
does that rescue do? What is rescue?
Where do you see rescue?
There's a rescue command somewhere. I can find it.
All right, yeah. I don't know. Long story short, I don't know the answer to that. I have no idea what rescue does. I might know what rescue does if I saw it, but I'm gonna go with I don't know. Anyway, so I've already shown you guys this, but so like error-driven development, right? It's gonna be really key for you guys. You guys are getting into Rails, and especially as you're getting into your projects. So if I did like artists instead of artists, I put in like misspelled. Jeez, whatever. That's fine. Close enough. Do that, right? You're seeing another error here, right? And this is like a really nice error again. It's literally saying no route matches get misspelled artist, right? So we defined our routes in that route.rb file, right? So the route that we defined was get artist, right? And now we're trying to get misspelled art, right? Yeah, which we didn't define, so it doesn't know where to go with that, right? And it's telling you exactly like, it even shows you what routes you've defined, right? So if you go down here, if you scroll down, it shows you all the routes that you've defined in your routes. And you'll see there is no get misspelled R anywhere, right? Cool. Yeah.
So the idea behind this is like, I guess like once we get into building this, we would like kind of plan out all the routes we think we need and then do some kind of testing just to make
Yeah.
sure like if we, like let's say I forgot to put something in,
Mhm.
now you just went there, then I should just go back and like, is there like another testing phase related to this?
I mean, this is basically this is development, right? So this is essentially testing. But yeah, like if you were building your routes, right, and you like forgot this put, and at some point you were trying to update an artist, right, and it would come back and it would say there is no update or there's no like puts path. You would be like, oh, let me go back to my routes and check, and you would see that it's missing, and you can just add it back in, right? You can modify your routes whenever you want. But yeah, the idea is like, and I think you guys will do this in the next couple classes, where it'll show you like you're going to go step by step and basically like open up the app, you'll see an error, right? Then it'll tell you like missing a view, so then you'll add a view, right? And then it'll tell you like missing a controller or something, and then you'll add a controller, and you kind of have to code that. So you guys are going to get a lot more like step by step process on this. This is just like trying to show you, get you guys a little bit comfortable with just like what the file structures are going to look like as you code through it. Yeah.
I think like last 2 days, like seeing as well this kind of all makes sense.
Mhm.
It's like really cool and powerful.
Yeah. So like in this code, you'll see like there's no raw SQL anywhere, right? Like it's doing all the raw SQL for you. And again, going back to here, you'll see it actually like creates SQL commands for you, which is like super nice, right? So this is a lot of stuff that you would have to write in your code somewhere that you don't have to do anymore. Yeah, exactly. So for the last like 2 minutes, I'm just going to show you guys like a terrifying example here. I'm going to show you guys the Garnet code base really quick, just to like blow your minds a little bit. And as you see here, note, this has taken many months and many devs to build. So like in your project 2, you are not expected to build this. But yeah, so like let's go into our app, right? And let's go into controllers. There are all these controllers. Oops. There are however many controllers these are, right? That's pretty crazy. And then like let's go into views, right? These are all just folders that hold each view, right? And let's go into assignments. Like these are like what we call partials, and this just has one view. There's just a show view for assignments, right? So it's actually only one thing, but that's all we need. So there's no need to create like an index. Yeah.
So for each like go back, each one has one main HTML page for each folder.
Some of them might have like an index. So like here you see there's just partials for some reason, right? Or like, let's see, like memberships, right? Memberships just has a show page. There's no HTML or there's no index page, right? So like because a membership, if you want to, you don't need to see like all the memberships in one. You just want to go to like one person or something, right? So yeah, or there are other ways to do that they've come up with. But don't get like too involved in this. I just want to show you guys like you can get really deep in Ruby and make like something pretty cool. Like Garnet's pretty awesome. So yeah, cool.
You guys built it together.
I mean, I didn't build it much, but I've made like 2 commits if you look in it. But the other instructors have built the overwhelming majority of it, yeah. Or they built all of it, yeah. All right, cool. We're at 12:30, so if you guys have any other questions, I can answer some. But other than that, go to lunch. Thanks.